Hello and welcome to this Robocraft 2 video. In this video, I will talk about how to make a custom turret for your robot using the aiming hinge and the aiming axle. In my previous video, I was talking about how to make a good base for your robot, but that was using the all integrated turrets here. They're actually very much viable. There's some benefits of using those ones over making your custom ones, but I will get into that a bit later into the video. If you don't know already how the basics of the armor system works, I encourage you to check out my previous video about how to make a good base for the robot first before actually taking a look at this video, because I will use some armor concepts that I might not explain fully here that I explained in that previous video. I will put a link in the description below to that video so you can check it out easily. But if you're already at that stage where you want to make your custom turret, this is the video for you. Let's start the video by actually talking pros and cons of the all-integrated turret versus a custom-made one. So the aiming axle and aiming hinge are affected by weight. That is, the more weight you put on them, the slower they will move. You will also, in order to be strong, have to dedicate quite a lot of CPU to armor your custom turret. That means that the all-integrated one, for the cost of only 60 CPU, which isn't that much, you get a quite strong and very light, that means fast turning turret. That means if you want to, for example, follow a target far away that is fast moving, say a flyer from ground, the standard laser turret might actually be a better choice than making a custom laser turret. Also, for example, the rail, you probably don't want to get close up and brawl with the rail anyway. You're gonna be sitting like far away, probably trying to hit something that is moving on the horizon, meaning a light turret might actually be a better choice, or the standard all-integrated turret, than actually putting a lot of CPU dedicated to a custom turret. All right. However, there is a possibility of making a turret that can survive more hits in total by making a custom turret, because you can armor it up a lot, but that will cost a lot of CPU. You can see here, instead of just 60 CPU, I dedicated a lot more. All that is left up there, up here, I actually plan to use for the turret in the end. So a lot are put into that. And the main reason for that is that people tend to aim, especially actually when you have a custom turret, because it's so big of a target, people tend to kind of ignore everything but the turret and concentrate all fire on the turret. So that's where you kind of want to focus the majority of your like different types of armor plating, right? Now, with that out of the way, let's get down to actually building the turret. I am going to show like two techniques, one that is a bit easier and a little less costly, and one more costly, a bit more complicated, and also I would say relying on mechanics that I hope will be patched out because they're very unintuitive. So, like I mentioned in my previous video about how to make a good armor for your robot, stuff that you attached, the plates you attach something to, should be the same size as the thing you want to attach, because you want those things to be hard to hit. And you want to use the strongest material, so here is a Ladium plate. But we're actually not going to use that Ladium plate. And the reason for that is that there's something that is stronger than Ladium, and that's the connection between different type of joints, like the aiming axle, different joints. If you connect those two together, that connection here is actually stronger than one of these connected to Ladium, so it can survive more hits. So what I have done here, and this is still the uncomplicated version, is that my pilot seat is sitting here. So even though the area of the connection will be smaller, this connection to the pilot seat will be stronger than if I would be putting it on a Ladium plate. Was that Ladium? No, it's not. All right. So if it's possible, try to put your pilot seat in a way where you can actually connect the aiming joints to directly to the seat. Let's go to the weapons, get an aiming axle. You can see you can actually scale this, hold down shift and scroll on the mouse. For ground-based vehicles, you probably always want to go with the biggest one, because it gives the better connection strength and also better stability. For flyers, it's a bit different, because they are quite heavy, so for a flyer the biggest one is probably too heavy to be efficient. You should have a gap of 1 plate in between turret and robot. Right now there's actually 2 plates of gap here, and that's because I had a different turret design here earlier, but for now let's just cover this up. Now this will make you look left and right, and we also need to, of course, be able to look up and down. So let's solve that. As strong as possible with the strongest material, but also not making it too big. Like the whole turret will actually sit on this cube, so that means this is what we need to protect. Let's grab an aiming hinge here. Also scroll it up to max size and put it there. So, like I mentioned previously, the connection between different type of joints, that includes guns actually, is stronger than the connection between a joint or a function part and a normal plate with normal material, right? So we want to connect the guns directly to the aiming hinge here. And now we have a functional turret. I mean, it's weaker than the all integrated one. I mean, this connection here in the middle is not very strong. It's not armored up at all, but we can kind of look around, up and down, fire with the guns. It works, right? What we might want to do is limit gun depression a bit here, so we don't scrape against the robot and get stuck when looking downwards. If you press E, you can configure everything from guns to joints and stuff like that. So for the aiming joints, if we click on that, we can see here that we can set min and max angle. Now, we don't really know what is min and max because that depended on how we turned it when we put it on, and there's no real indication on the aiming joint itself. So I'm just gonna take a shot at it and put 0 here, and then save, and then go into test mode. And I can look down, but not up. So now we actually know what is min and max on that joint. Let's go back to the building area. So we don't really want to limit how much it can look up. So let's put this one to 90, but we might want to limit how much it looks down. So let's put that to 10 for now. So how much you want to limit the gun depression downwards depends, of course, how you made your robot. Like if there's a lot of slopes around the gun turret, you might be able to have a lot more gun depression, like 15 or 20%. And if it's very flat around, you might have to limit it even more. But you kind of want to limit it so much that you don't kind of accidentally scrape and get stuck when you look around. Now what we have left to do, with quite a lot of armor here, we might not use all of it, we can use some for decorations as well, is to armor up this gun turret. So we have to think about how to armor this in a way where this cube survives for as long as possible, because this cube is what holds everything together. That's where we can like attach all the armor for the rest of the turret. Also, of course, that's where the aiming hinge sits. So if this one goes, then we lose our aiming hinge and we don't have guns anymore. This is not an attachment plate or attachment point. It looks like we can attach something there, but if I would spawn in right now, it will just fall right off. So it's not like a real attachment point. I am going to make these plates rather small, and the reason for this is also that I want these ones hard to hit, right? Because if we lose these ones, well, we lose all the armor around the turret. Let's build some armor around it. That was just a temporary one. We can put something here as well. This is pretty much just, I want to block shots from penetrating here. I don't think we need to make this one, and the strongest material will take medium for that. Long connections to make them as strong as possible. Since I plan to use Ladium for this, I should probably switch material now so I don't have to do that later. I don't think you could go and make like a really big turret. It depends how heavy it is. Now, how much plate spam you do here is, of course, depending on how heavy of a turret you want. Like the more plates you put in here, the more Ladium put in here, the heavier the turret will be, the slower it will move. So that's like an important consideration when making the turret. I also see a small change we will do here, because this is kind of hard to armor up here without, you can't really put armor here, right? Because it will get stuck to the rest of the turret. So we're just gonna move these ones and instead put the weapons like this. Will be a bit easier to armor up here. Like this. I like this. That's better. All right, back to the plate spam. Let's just put a bunch of plates here. You can see now with mirror mode, it spams on the other side as well. And remember, this is the connection we want to protect. This is what we want to protect, and these connections over here. So that's what matters here. We also, of course, have to do some kind of protection from the back. So let's add a bunch of plates here as well. I think that's well enough. And some more here. I don't want to make this like super big here, but so I think it's actually could be enough with this here. Again, this depends on how heavy you want your turret. We also want some protections from above, because I mean we might have flyers bombing us. So we want some type of protection here as well. You can't have this one too much forward, or you might limit how much you can look up with the guns. So I want some decent armor here against plasma from above. Now let's start working on the guns themselves. We want to kind of build a shroud around them to make them hard to hit. We got some good attachment points here for armor on the sides of the aiming hinge. It's kind of hard to make a plate that attached there like this. So what I am going to do is instead build it on the ground like this, 9 times 3, raise it a bit, and then there's a copy and paste tool here, and we can just grab this plate here, and now we have attachment points like this, and now it's a lot easier to put it in place here like this. Let's see, we might want it one step upwards. It depends a bit on how much gun depression we want. I kind of wanted one step upwards, I think. Like this maybe? Yeah, that looks better. And even though it might not look like it, you can actually make it even closer to the guns. This is as close as it gets, you can't put anything there. We also need to armor up below here and above. We can put some cube here to have like a temporary attachment point, so we can put some armor here as well. And some below as well. You can actually armor up a bit closer here, but I think it's a bit iffy and not really needed. Anyway, now we have kind of a strong shroud around our guns, and we can go back to work on the rest of the tower. You can armor this one up even more. I mean, it comes down to preference here. Like, I think the meta right now is actually to have this rather heavily armored. That is like you keep adding plates here on the top, making this one longer with even more plates towards the front. But it's the same technique. There's nothing new there. You just add more armor to it. Let's go back to armoring the rest of the tower here. I will switch material now to the medium material here. And the reason for that is that if I keep doing the plate spam, this will be a very slow turning heavy turret, and I don't really want that. I mean, it's also like, again, this is preference, right? If you're gonna only be up close brawling, how fast your turret spins doesn't really matter. But if you want to be able to follow target at some distance, at some speed, you can't make it like very, very heavy, because then that will be very hard. I will switch thickness now because of how penetration works in the game, and since the penetration resistance is much lower for the medium material, we need it thicker, so a good thickness is 1 cube thick for this. So that's what I'm doing here. Again, long connections when possible. It all comes down to stopping penetration to the stuff you really care about. And that's just all in here in the middle. So some more protection from the top here I think also is needed. Kind of 9 wide I think. Additional rod spam. So the way of making effective armor is right now, I mean this might change if they change values for different materials, or if they introduce like new materials as well, but like a mixture of rod spam of moderanium and place of Ladium, the heavy material Ladium, is quite a good combination. Let's remove the stuff I have here from when I copied paste on the floor. But anyway, now we got like a working turret. Let's take it into test mode here. So this is already quite heavy turret. You can see it's moving slow now because of the weight. Compared to, if you would compare it to like all integrated turrets, this is slow. The true aim is that little circle, and you can see it kind of struggles to keep up as I turn and look around. And I'm not even like moving very fast right now with the mouse, and it can't really follow. So this is good for like medium to close brawling, where you might have your opponent kind of pinned down in one direction, but you can't really like follow targets moving at a distance at speed. So to finalize the turret, I am going to use some aerium, and that's without like adding too much weight, just add space. And the reason for that, I talked about it in my previous video about how to make a good robot, is to kind of make the point of impact from rail and plasma land further out. And the reason for that is when they hit your robot, they fire shrapnel that kind of fires in kind of a cone-shaped formation, so you can actually bypass a bit of the armor. So if it kind of hits your robot further out, or further from the real armor here, the armor we really care about, it might not damage your robot as much. This is also good to use, for example, to get like the shape you want. You probably don't want your turret to look like an ugly brick, and then you can kind of do two things at once, both adding a cosmetic layer and adding some kind of like spacing to where the hits actually will land. Since these will be kind of get hit and forget cubes, that is, I don't really count them on surviving more than one hit anyway. I want a lot of them. So I don't really care about connection size, I just want many of them. So because if I make like one big here, it survives one hit, and then that kind of spacing is gone. If I make them smaller, then it's just part of the spacing that is gone, right? And up here, it's to have some spacing if we get bombed by plasma drones. Now, admittingly, this is a very ugly tower. So we didn't really add much weight here, but we added that spacing that will make hits land further out. So the step I will do now is nothing you need to do, because it's only to be able to show you how it can withstand damage and use the guns on the test map to shoot at it. And for like when doing that, it's good if the turret stays in place in forward position. So what I will do is have aim enable connected to seat. This means it will kind of, unless you sit in the seat, aiming is not enabled, and it will face forward. And then I'm also going to use like a bit block here. Oh, I should probably turn off mirror mode here. Just put it on a cube here. This is only like for the test map, and I want a way to activate the brakes. So let's press like space to toggle here. That will toggle between 0 and 1, and have that connected to the brakes. So the reason I'm doing this is, of course, that I can kind of put the robot to stay in place as I shoot at it, so it won't kind of slowly roll away. Makes it easier to hit the same point of impact. Because what I want to show you is kind of the difference in how much damage this one can take compared to an all-integrated turret. Now we got that. Let's bring it to the test map. Okay, so I have parked here in front of the plasma guns at the test map. We know our aiming hinge is roughly here. This is what we want to protect. So let's just shoot at like the central spot all the time, hitting the same spot over and over again, and see how many shots it takes before we can no longer use the turret. 1. Still looks all right. 2. We can now see the Ladium plate spam that is protecting the inner core. 3. Now let's actually take a little peek in here. We can actually see that cube that we want to protect, or holding the thing together here. We still have like full control of our turret, so it's still fully functional. And let's be really naughty here and aim right there. You can see now the turret fell apart. So that was the 4th shot with plasma here. So for comparison, here is an all integrated turret. 1 shot. I'm not sure if I really hit the turret. 2 shots. And you can see I lost the guns. So there is no doubt the custom made turret is stronger. You can see it wasn't the connection that failed here. It was the connection between the guns and the turret, not the turret and the robot. So like we can't really make it stronger because it's not the turret connection to the robot itself that fails first. So there's no doubt the custom made turrets can be made a lot stronger, but it's not as much stronger as it might seem by just counting how many hits it can take. I mean, this little turret here is of course a lot harder to hit than a big custom made turret. It's also a lot faster at tracking targets than a custom made turret. Because I mean, if we made a custom made turret this light, it wouldn't be as strong. The reason it's strong is because all the plate spamming, right? Also, this one costs less. It's 60 CPU versus like several hundred CPU for the, or at least 150, 200 CPU for the custom made one. So it comes with pros and cons. But I'm not really finished with the video because I am going to show you how to, with investing a little bit more into the turret, you can actually make it even stronger, even though it's a bit like complicated. Let's start by removing everything we've done here. I am also going to remove this layer here, this extra layer I put there in the beginning. So let's make this turret as it was originally intended for this robot. And that is using a powered hinge to connect the aiming servo and the aiming hinge. And I am going to offset it a bit here. And that is to have connection points for all the armor we are going to put there. Like we can connect armor here, a little plate here that we connect to the rest of the robot, and also armor here. If we would centralize this one, like something like this, right? Then of course we could still connect armor below here, but then they would only be connected to this hinge, which means if this hinge takes damage, all our turret or all our armor around can actually pop off. When this hinge is moved a little bit forward, like this, let's see if it's rotated correctly. Yeah. We also have connection points here, which means we have like 2 different cubes, and this one is a lot harder to hit, so it's less likely to take damage than this hinge is, which means it's less likely our whole armor around the turret will be popping off before the actual turret is pretty much dead anyway. And on top of this one, we can place the aiming hinge. I offset it as well because what I am going to do is place a little bit of armor here that sticks out down here. So when this hinge here kind of turns around facing forward, there will be some armor above it here protecting it. Now we can mount the weapons here on this hinge here, just like before. We also want this one to turn down, because if we go into battle now, it will just face forward. So we need this one to kind of fold forward. And an easy way to do that is to connect it to seat. This means as long as we sit in the seat, this one will be active with the 1, which will fold this one forward. There is one kind of downside of that, and that is if we respawn the robot, it will not start folding the guns down before we actually sit in the seat. So we can save ourselves a little time by actually like having another logic block somewhere. And then set this one to always be on. and then take the current state from that and to the input of this one. Now let's go into the map. You can see that this doesn't really look correct, and the reason for that is the hinge is folding in the wrong direction. So we need to change the direction of that. So direction reverse. I also want it to fold down a bit quicker because this is really slow, so it folds down really fast. Let's try this. You can see that this kind of looks weird. It didn't manage to kind of fold down correctly because the guns are kind of pointing down towards the robot now, and that's only until we sit in the seat. And the way we can prevent that so it folds down nicely immediately is actually prevent aiming of the aiming hinge here until we're actually seated. So let's add that as well. But now we have like a fully functioning gun tower here, or turret tower. Yeah, anyway, so here aim enabled, take that to the pilot seat, and now we don't have to worry about that, and it will fold down nicely. And now let's start arming up the robot by starting with the attachment plates here. Below here, I will activate mirror mode, and also here is the warning. Mirror mode have shifted. You see, I adjusted the mirror line to fit my robot because I haven't built it really in the center. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, I don't know. But anyway, if you adjusted the mirror line here to the left or right, and you enter test mode, it will not remember it. Meaning, if you don't think about it, you activate mirror mode, you start working on your robot after bringing it to test mode, you will maybe start to kind of like you delete on one side and it deletes somewhere completely different on your robot on the other side. Maybe you keep working, you don't notice. So be very careful with this. So always check that everything is correct, set up with like where the mirror line is set up, so it aligns correctly every time you enter test mode, especially if your robot is not like centralized here. You can of course move the robot to the left and right for it to be more centralized, but it's not like all the builds that are where you actually want to make it perfectly symmetrical with like one cube in the middle. So that's something to keep in mind, I think. Oh, now I need to adjust the mirror line again. Is it correct now? Yeah, kinda. All right. Again, small plates here, because these are the ones that keep our whole tower together. If these ones goes, we kind of lose the whole thing. Alright, so I want the cube attached here. I actually realized before we actually start to plate spam on the sides, the mirror mode is probably more annoying than helping. So let's deactivate that. So anyway, here it's kind of hard to get the plate attaching like I wanted to. So I'm going to cut and paste to get it there. First, we have to measure the size of the cube, because we don't want it to kind of scrape against this one. Because if it does goes against that, it will get attached to this plate, and the hinge here won't fold. So we want to prevent that, but we still want to kind of make it as big as possible. So that would be 2 cubes and 1 high and 3 cubes wide, right? So we're going to stretch something to that size, because that size does not exist. So that would be like 7 times 3, that should be correct. And this one part here is 7. So we have to kind of cut and paste from this direction here. Like I said, this is a bit, I also have to activate F6 to be able to actually connect the stuff the way I want to. So like you see, this is a bit more finicky, this is a bit more complicated. The first thing I showed you is a lot more straightforward than this approach here. But this approach buys you, like in best case scenario, you survive like 1 more hit with plasma by using this. This is also more expensive, because instead of like having 1 CPU for the connection points in between here, this is 30 CPUs, so it's more expensive. So here we can build up with some armor here to protect our aiming hinge. This will prevent it from folding all the way upwards, but you will kind of still be able to aim 90% upwards. You can of course make these ones a bit shorter, like if you actually want to be able to look all the way upwards, you can kind of construct a cube that is like 8 high here. Actually, let's do that. 8 times 3 it should be, and let's grab it here with copy paste. That should be correctly. All right. So we have some armor here now. We also have to stick the rest of the tower on these things here. So this one is going to kind of fold forward. So here's where our guns will be. So we're going to attach the things here, kind of here. We also can attach like a little bit here because we have attachment places there. So let's actually use that too to get some more points there. Just some more redundancy. All right. These are the cubes that are important to us, including this one, of course, and the guns. The rest will just protect these cubes. So the way we do this is a bit different now than compared to the other tower, because of course we need like space for this one to fall down and this one to fall down. So we can't really smash anything tight against here, because if we would put like a plate here, this one would be attached to that plate, so we actually need kind of a little spacing here. So the way we can do that is, for example, put some plates here as well. Also, I'm working with kind of small plates here because these are, again, the stuff that glues everything together. These are not the ones that are supposed to survive a lot of hits. These are the things that are supposed to not get hit until all our armor is gone. And this is probably the point where that mirror mode is useful again. So let's activate it. Because we are going to do a lot of things that kind of is mirroring right now. Can actually put like a little plate, since it's not gonna fall down more than 90 degrees here in the front. We can actually build out here as well. Let's put some cubes here. So now we got a few nice attachment points here. We can do like a few in the backs as well. And now it's time to start with the plate spam, kinda. We can't really build all the way in, but almost. So let's do like something like this. And one more inwards. If we build it further in, it will kind of get stuck to these ones, but we can actually build it a bit further in here in the front. So we're just not going to kind of build it all the way back. We're just going to stop like there, right? So that is how many points? Like that's 6 times 2, 3, 6 times 3, yeah. Anyway, so let's try that this one actually folds down now, despite the kind of tight fit. You can now see that we have those plates sitting above, actually protecting the hinge a bit from above. We have those things on the sides protecting. So we are getting to the core of this more complicated tower, and soon we're down to kind of the easy part, right? So you cannot put like start your plate spam in here, because this one actually need a little bit room to fold. So we have to start like further out. So we can start here. Oh, actually it should be the strongest material again, and it should not go down that far. So let's make it go up one more here. And just to make sure this can still fold, let's bring it into test mode. If we would put it closer than this, this would get stuck and not fold. Now you see there's a little hole there that you can actually look down in from above. We are going to solve that a bit later as well. But first, let's keep spamming plates here. I'm going to make this one a bit higher than I did with the previous build, because we actually have to solve that hole, and for that we need to get up a bit in height as well. So now when this folds up, it will require a little bit of space above, and that's what we are going to create now. Let's see how much we need. I think actually that should be enough. I'm not sure. I might have to bring this one into test mode to check that this is enough. Let's see. All right, it was enough. You can see the hole looks a whole lot better. Pun kind of intended or not intended, I don't know. Anyway, but I didn't cover it completely, so I have to go back and kind of stretch those plates out a little bit more. Okay, so here, so we want to make these ones a bit bigger. This is not possible. You can see you can't really fit it, but we can make them bigger than this, I'm quite sure. So either like this, these are kind of 6 wide, or rather 2 cubes, 6 of the rods wide, maybe 7 or 8. Let's start with 8 first and see if that fits. So let's make a cube that is like 8 by 5, was it? Grab that one here from the floor. See if it sticks. Seems so, right? Let's bring it into test mode, see that it actually folds down as intended. It's better to check that now than to build your whole tower just to discover that you made it too tight and it won't fold down. But it looks fine. We now have pretty much, not 100%, but covered that gap. As well as all the plating around it. We got great attachment points. We can go back to actually making the rest of the tower. Again, I want the shroud around here. I will just repeat the process we used for the kind of previous tower. Pasting stuff again here, because it's easier than to actually try to construct them there. And again, we can place it a bit further in here. If I can actually get the view here of where I want to place them. There we go. And armor up around above. Let's see. Just somewhere to attach these ones. And again, how much armor and how long you actually make this kind of shroud around, or how big, how heavy, and how long you make this shroud around the guns is down to personal preference. You see this one right now is, again, it's not 9 wide, it's rather 7 wide. And we can't really put more on the sides here, or it will go against these ones when folding down. But we can actually, if we want this one a bit thicker, we could again with cubes construct something that is 7 wide and 9 long. So we can actually stretch a cube to the size we want again and copy paste it. Oh yeah, we are going to kind of paste it like this. So let's do this. I have a tip here, and it has nothing to do with making a good gun tower, but rather the copy paste tool. If you are stretching and working with like copy and pasting stuff, you can decide like where the attachment point is. So if we have like a cube here and we want to like make it bigger, like this something, right? And we want to attach it somewhere. Like the point of where we attach is this little circle with arrows in the middle. And so like we can check, like if we want to attach in this end towards the right hand side here, if we make sure that a circle will actually be below there, you can see that's the little white square, that's where we will attach it. So you can, like, when you copy paste stuff, you can think about where that little circle is in order to get kind of an attachment point that works with where you kind of have to place it later. Anyhow, so now we got kind of a lot of armor here. We got lots of armor on the sides. We can actually armor up a bit more here as well. That will not really conflict with anything. This is 4 high and, well, 7 long. And we don't have anything 4 high, but again, that we can kind of solve. We said we wanted 7. We can also make it 9 if we want to stretch it out a bit, but let's take it 7. The attachment point now would be there in the middle. We cut and paste this one. I think this will work without slowing down the hinge. Let's try it just to be sure, otherwise we might have to remove the innermost one. And it works. You see it's folded down. We can actually jump up here and see how it's protected. See, it's quite good protection from above. There's a little hole here, but there's nothing really we can do about that gap. Let's go back inside and keep working on our tower. So from here, you can kind of work your way outwards with more armor towards the front. I have activated mirror mode again. You can kind of go like something like this. You can go all the way out to some like shorter distance. Like this maybe. We also probably want this one to be like a stronger material, otherwise it shouldn't be plates, right? So like this, we can add some more up here as well. And how much plating you add here, well, Ladium plating you add here, comes down very much to how slow you can live with when it comes to like turning your tower, because it will be slower and slower the more you add. And once you kind of feel you're happy with the amount of Ladium spam, you can of course kind of experiment with different amounts and different weight of your tower. You can add an outer, or not outer, but like middle layer of rods of the medium material, just like I showed you earlier with the like ugly duckling we had before here, or not really duckling because it's never going to get pretty or become pretty like the duckling did, but anyway, add it on top, and on the very like outskirts add that spacing with a lighter material. I will not finalize this build because I've already finalized it. I mean, this is actually like my current most used ground bot. So I will just show how it can look when you kind of finalized it instead. So let's jump over to that Robocraft. So here it is, like the inner part here this is Ladium. This is even like more plates, there's even more plate spam here to add even more HP. I've used nameplate here to make it kind of look cool on the sides. Admittingly, this might not be the most beautiful tower, but it's at least not like completely square. Like I said, this is my most used ground bot. It holds up very well. So here you have the robot with the tower finalized. You see there's plenty of protection here from above. You have the outer layer of Arium. You have like a central layer that you can't really see now of the medium material, and the core of the heavy material, with also the heavy material used for the shroud itself. So that was the whole video. Hope you liked it. Give a thumbs up if you did. Maybe subscribe if you're already not subscribed. I try to provide content somewhat regularly. That's a hard word to pronounce for me in English, actually. English is not my first language. You probably know that already. Anyhow, if you have any questions regarding, I don't know, anything Robocrafty, I guess, just leave it the comments in the comment section. Just ask those in the comment sections and I will try to answer them. Or maybe just make a video to answer them, like another guide. Yeah, cheers.